Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too.
I never thought a place as ordinary as a Burger King could leave a scar on my life, but that night carved itself into me like teeth marks. Before everything happened, before I learned how bad things can get behind a simple drive-through window, my routine was embarrassingly predictable. Finish my shift at the distribution warehouse, loosen my belt in the truck, and hit the 24/7 Burger King on County Road 18. I'm not a foodie. I'm not even a guy with fancy expectations. I'm just big, always hungry, and too stubborn to learn how to cook. So fast food was my guilty comfort, especially after working 10-hour nights on my feet. On the nights when everything went wrong, forklifts breaking down, pallets falling, supervisors breathing down my neck, that greasy bag of food was the only thing that felt like a reward. A small thing, a stupid thing, but it mattered. People always assume you can spot evil. You can't. Sometimes it's wearing a Burger King visor and whispering, "Have a nice night, sir." Backstory. How my routine became a crutch. I used to work days, believe it or not. But after my dad passed away in late 2021, everything started slipping. He and I weren't close, not since he remarried, but grief doesn't care about closeness. It hits anyway. I lost motivation. I lost my appetite for anything except cheap, fast meals. I bounced between day shifts at the warehouse and my mom's place at night, and I barely slept. The shift manager, a guy named Vince, was the one who offered me the night shift. "You look like you need the quiet, man," he told me. "Nights help you think." He wasn't wrong. The night shift was lonely, but the loneliness was easier than the noise. And after work, the Burger King became part of my decompression, a place where I could sit in my truck, unwrap a hot sandwich, and stare at nothing for 10 minutes before heading home. Food was comfort. Routine was comfort. Predictability was comfort, until the night routine turned on me. The night it began. It was a little past 2:10 a.m. when I rolled into the drive-thru. Tuesday night, technically Wednesday morning, cold enough that the windows fogged a little when I exhaled. I pulled up to the ordering speaker like always, cracked my knuckles, and waited for the usual bored, "Welcome to Burger King. Go ahead when you're ready." Nothing. Just the faint buzz of the speaker. I cleared my throat. "Hey, hello?" Nothing. I tapped the steering wheel, annoyed but not angry yet. Overnight workers fall asleep sometimes. I've seen it at enough places. I leaned out of my window. "Yo, you guys open? Sign says 24/7. The static didn't change, but I heard something faint behind it, like someone breathing too close to the mic. Not talking, not moving, just breathing. Long, shaky breaths, not normal. I frowned. "Hey, buddy, if you can hear me, I'm just trying to order. Say something." The breathing stopped. Then a whisper, so small I almost missed it. "Drive to the window." The voice was trembling, strained, like someone holding back tears. That was my first warning sign. But hunger makes people ignore warnings. The employee at the window, I pulled up. Lights were on, kitchen fully lit, machines humming, everything bright and empty. And then, as if someone had been waiting, the cashier slid into view from the left side of the window. He didn't walk. He jerked into frame like he'd been shoved. His name tag read Alden. He couldn't have been older than 22. Thin, sweat pasted his hair to his forehead. His eyes were wide, not like someone startled, but like someone who had been afraid for a very long time. He forced a smile, not a real smile, a practiced one, stretched too wide, like his lips were trembling under it. He slid the window open with a shaky hand. "Good. Good evening, sir. Welcome to Burger King. What can I get started for you?" His voice cracked halfway through. I paused. He stared at me like his life depended on my answer. Just a Whopper meal. Large." He nodded too fast. "Good. Yes, that's good. Who says it like that? That's good? I frowned. You okay, man? His smile twitched. Yes, sir. Completely. Everything's fine. His eyes said nothing was fine. He typed something into the register, but his fingers fumbled as if he kept hitting wrong buttons. He winced. Actually winced. Then he whispered, barely audible, "Don't raise your voice at me, please." I blinked. Who said I was gonna raise my voice? He didn't answer. He pressed a button on the register and flinched like he'd been shocked. I was starting to feel uneasy, not scared, just off balance. Alden leaned closer, gripping the window frame so tight his knuckles whitened. "Sir, are you alone in your truck?" Weird question. Yeah. His eyes darted behind me. "Are you parked in front of the camera? The outside camera?" I looked up. There was a small dome camera above the drive-through window. "Yeah, I guess so." He swallowed hard. "Good. Don't..." He stopped. His voice broke. He lowered his head like he was afraid the air itself could hear him. Then he whispered, "Please don't leave until I give you the food. If you leave, something bad will happen." A chill tore through me. Not because of the words, but because of the way he said them. He sounded like a hostage reciting instructions he'd been ordered to follow. I leaned closer. "Alden, who's back there with you?" His eyes filled with tears instantly. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He just stared at me with utter misery. Then he mouthed, silent, desperate, "Don't ask." A shape moved behind him. A woman, late 30s maybe, short, reddish hair. Her name tag, Janelle. Her face was blank, not calm, not normal, not tired. Blank, like she wasn't fully present. She walked up behind him slowly, her steps too smooth, like she wasn't using her knees. She placed a hand on Alden's shoulder. He froze like a statue. Then she looked at me and smiled. But her smile had no warmth. It felt like someone imitating human expression. "Sorry for the wait," she said. "We're a little short-staffed tonight." Her voice was steady, too steady, like she'd rehearsed every syllable. Alden's hands were trembling at his sides. When she squeezed his shoulder, he inhaled sharply. A tiny gasp of pain. My stomach churned. Something was wrong in that kitchen. Very wrong. Janelle stepped forward. "Your total is $7.49. Would you like to add anything else tonight?" Her tone was polite, robotic. But then, Alden suddenly whispered, panicked, "Don't say yes, please. Don't say yes to anything she offers." Janelle dug her nails into his shoulder. He let out a tiny whimper. She didn't look at him. She just kept staring at me with that fake smile. "Would you like anything else?" "No," I said quickly. "No, I'm good." Alden exhaled in relief. Janelle nodded, but her smile twitched, only for a fraction of a second. "Good," she said. "Good. Choices matter." "What? Who talks like that?" I handed her my card. She held it for too long, like she was considering something. Then she turned to the register. Alden whispered without looking at me, "Please, whatever you do, don't get out of the truck." I whispered back, "Why?" His lip trembled. "Because then they can take you inside." They, plural. I glanced back toward the kitchen. I saw no one else. But the fryer station was blocked by a tall metal rack. Was someone hiding behind it? Janelle returned with my card and receipt. Her smile never changed. "Pull forward to the second window," she said. There was no second window at this Burger King, just the one. I stared at her. There is no second window. Her smile didn't drop, but her eyes turned sharp, predatory. "Then wait here," she said softly. "Don't move." Alden's breathing hitched, rapid, frightened. He whispered so urgently, I felt every word. "If she leaves, lock your doors." Then he shut the window himself, quickly, like he wasn't supposed to. Janelle walked out of sight. Alden remained, hands shaking, staring at the floor. I called out softly, "Alden, talk to me. What's going on?" He didn't look up. "We're not alone tonight," he whispered. "They come after close." "Who's they?" His voice broke entirely. "The night watchers." I froze. "Bro, what the hell does that?" He slapped the window with both hands. Not hard, but desperately. His face pressed to the glass. His eyes were red, terrified. "They're in charge after midnight," he pleaded. We have to do what they say, or they..." A shadow moved behind him. Tall, slender, too still. A figure I hadn't seen before. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He wasn't wearing anything identifiable. Just a hood, hands tucked into pockets. Watching. Alden's expression went white. "Please leave," he mouthed. "Please leave now." Then the hooded figure grabbed him by the back of the shirt and yanked him out of view. He didn't scream, he didn't fight, he just vanished behind the counter. My stomach dropped. The window slid open again. But this time, Janelle wasn't the one opening it. The hooded figure leaned in. His breath smelled like cold air and metal. I never saw his face. The hood cast a perfect shadow. He didn't speak for several seconds. Then, "You forgot your food." He held out a bag. His hand was shaking, but not from fear, from restraint. It looked like he was trying not to grab me instead. I put my truck in reverse, slow, controlled. His head tilted slightly, like he was studying me. Then he said, "We like when customers come inside." "Not tonight," I muttered. His fingers tightened on the bag. "Take the food," he said again. I floored it. The tires screeched as I backed out of the drive-through lane and shot toward the street. In my rearview mirror, the hooded figure stepped out of the window and onto the pavement, just standing there, watching me speed away. The bag of food dropped from his hand and hit the ground. The aftermath: I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I didn't even go back to work the next morning. I called out sick and sat in my living room with every light on. Around 8 a.m., I turned on the local news. That's when I saw it. Breaking: Burger King on County Road 18, shut down for investigation. The reporter stood outside the same drive-through I had been at hours earlier. She listed details slowly, grimly. Employees were found inside in severe psychological distress. One worker, 22-year-old Alden Pierce, was rushed to the hospital, repeatedly saying they came after close. Police found no sign of forced entry. Security cameras from midnight to 3 a.m. are missing. And then, greater than, authorities believe multiple individuals may have been inside the building after hours, though the exact number is unclear. My chest tightened. There was no mention of Janelle, no mention of the hooded figure, just a sentence that made my blood turn cold. Several employees are unaccounted for. I tried to move on, tried to pretend it was just a night of weirdness and fear and imagination. I even convinced myself to drive by the building 2 days later. It was boarded up, police tape everywhere, parking lot empty. But as I slowed my truck, I saw something on the pavement in front of the drive-through window. Something small, soggy from rain, a Burger King bag, the same kind they'd tried to hand me, and written across it in black marker, "You were supposed to stay." I drove away and never went back. I still eat fast food, old habits die hard, but never Burger King, not at night, not after close, because sometimes, when the world quiets down and the streetlights flicker and the road's empty, something else clocks in, something that looks like employees, something that waits for customers who don't know better, something that wants them inside, and I was almost one of them. I've always been the kind of person who clings to routine, not because it's comfortable, though it is, but because it keeps my life from spiraling into that chaotic mess it used to be. Before all of this happened, before the nightmares, before the smell of grilled meat made my stomach flip inside out. I used to walk to the Burger King down on Marlowe Avenue every single evening. Rain, snow, blistering heat, didn't matter. Back then, fast food was basically my coping mechanism. Some folks smoke, some drink. Me? I grabbed a crispy royal chicken, large fries, and a Diet Coke like clockwork. My husband, Jared, worked double shifts at a contractor warehouse 2 towns over. He rarely came home before midnight, and even when he did, he'd be dead tired, hands bruised, shoulders slumped, smelling like cardboard dust and cold concrete. Cooking wasn't even on his radar. And I wasn't exactly known for my cooking skills. So Burger King became my place, the one spot where the workers knew my order, where no one judged me for eating the same thing 5 nights a week. But everything changed the night that new guy showed up. It was a Thursday, cold enough that my breath fogged up as I walked, but not cold enough to convince me to stay home. I had spent the whole day cleaning the apartment, waiting for Jared to check in, and feeling that familiar gnaw of hunger around 7:45 p.m. I pulled open the Burger King door, expecting the usual scene, music humming low, the fryer cracking in the back, and Marlene, the older lady with a raspy voice, greeting me with her usual, "Evening, sweetheart." The usual, but she wasn't there. Neither was Terrence, the night shift cook who always joked about me being their most loyal customer. Instead, a guy I'd never seen stood behind the counter, tall, pale, slim to the point of looking malnourished. His hair was stringy, too long for food service, and tucked behind his ears unevenly. His name tag read, Coulson. When he saw me walk in, he didn't smile. He smirked. Not friendly, not flirty, just off. "Hey there," he said, dragging out the words like he was tasting them. "You, here for dinner?" His voice felt like fingertips brushing the wrong way down my spine. Yeah," I replied, tightening my grip on my wallet. "Can I get a crispy royal chicken to go?" Coulson leaned forward over the counter, too close, and tilted his head. "To go? You don't want to sit in?" The tone, the stare, the weird half-giggle at the end. "Nope," I swallowed. "No, thanks. Just to go." "Suit yourself." He punched the order into the register without breaking eye contact. Not once. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. New staff happens. Maybe management hired a weird guy. Not my problem. But Burger King wasn't just food for me. It was my escape, my routine, the one thing that didn't change even when life did. When Jared and I had gone through rough patches, money issues, family drama, Burger King was weirdly the place where I could zone out, eat, and breathe. So I didn't let one creepy dude push me away. I should've. God, I should've. The sandwich tasted different that night. Not bad, not off, just different. A little earthier, a little softer. I brushed it off, finished it anyway, and went to bed with a mild stomach cramp that I blamed on stress or maybe eating too fast. But over the next week, the pain got worse, sharp, twisting, random waves that made me bend over the sink, breathing through my teeth. Jared begged me to stop eating there. "Baby, something's wrong. Nobody gets stomach pain like that from a sandwich unless something's messed up." "I'm fine," I said, lying straight through my teeth. Deep down, I knew the only thing that changed was the guy behind the counter, but denial is a powerful thing. The night everything snapped. It was around 9 p.m. Jared had finally convinced me. We go together, we order it again, and we check it. Right there, no excuses. So we walked in together. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The place smelled like sesame buns and old mop water. And there he was, Coulson, arms folded, leaning back against the soda machine, grinning like he'd been waiting for me. "Well, well," he said, "you're looking rough today. Lost that glow you had last week." Jared shot him a look that could crack concrete. "Just take the order," I muttered. Coulson winked. "Sure thing, darling." He turned away, but not before I noticed something. His hands, Dark smudges under the nails, something sticky down the side of his palm, and something about the way he handled the sandwich as he wrapped it, like he was pressing something into it, made my pulse spike. We sat at a table. Jared opened the wrapper slow, cautious. At first glance, it looked normal. Then, "Wait, babe, look, don't freak out." There was movement. Tiny, black, glossy. I leaned in, thinking my eyes were playing tricks. They weren't. Slugs, at least a dozen, squirming between the lettuce and the chicken patty, like they'd been nesting there. My breath vanished. My vision tunneled. My throat clenched so hard I dry heaved. "What the?" Jared shot up, knocking the chair over. "Are you freaking kidding me?" He stormed up to the counter and slammed the tray down so hard Coulson flinched. "You put slugs in my wife's food? Are you out of your goddamn mind?" Coulson blinked, then shrugged. "Sir, I don't know what you mean." "You lying little..." Jared grabbed him by the collar. "She's been sick for weeks. You think this is funny?" Customers backed away. One lady covered her mouth. A kid started crying. The manager, a short, stubby guy named Derek, rushed over. Hey, let him go or I'm calling security." "Call whoever you want," Jared snarled. "My wife could have been poisoned." But Derek didn't even look at the sandwich. He looked at me and said, "Ma'am, if you're trying to scam us for compensation..." That's when I realized it. They were protecting each other. Whether Derek was covering for him or scared of losing his job, I didn't know, but we were getting nowhere. They kicked us out, right after Jared threw a trash can and nearly broke the napkin dispenser. The investigation, we went straight to the police. We handed them the slug-filled sandwich. They took photos, wrote statements, promised they'd look into it. Weeks passed, nothing, not a single update. Then one morning, Jared handed me his phone. "Look, a local article, small, barely shared. Burger King on Marlowe Avenue suddenly closed. No explanation. Employees disappeared overnight. Building condemned due to sanitary violations. No follow-up, no details, just gone, like the whole thing was erased." The last time I saw him 2 months later, right when I finally started feeling normal again, I saw something that nearly made me drop my groceries. Across the street, near the now abandoned Burger King, sitting by the boarded-up entrance, Coulson, still wearing the same uniform, still smiling that same wrong smile. He lifted his hand, waved, then pointed at me. His fingers brushed across his stomach, slowly, lazily, like he missed feeding something. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't about me eating there. It wasn't about harassment. It wasn't random. He wanted me sick. He enjoyed watching it. And worst of all, he knew where I lived. He'd always known. I haven't eaten fast food since. Can't even drive past a Burger King without my stomach twisting into knots. Every once in a while at night when I walk past the kitchen, I swear I hear something. A wet, tiny slithering sound, coming from inside the cabinets, like something survived, like something's waiting, just like he is. I never thought flipping burgers at a rundown Burger King off Route 47 would ever become the darkest chapter of my life. Back then, I was 22, broke, exhausted, and fresh off a string of decisions I wasn't proud of. I'd dropped out of college after failing 2 semesters in a row. My parents were disappointed, but too polite to say it outright. Their silence alone pushed me to move out as soon as I could, so I took the first job that didn't require a degree, night shift at Burger King in Ashwood, Ohio. The place wasn't the worst job in the world, not at first. The building was old, the ceiling tiles stained from ancient leaks, the fryers squealed like they were alive, and the soda machine had to be slapped twice before it dispensed anything. But it paid rent, and most nights were quiet enough for me to play podcasts while wiping counters. The only weird thing about the Ashwood location was the night regulars, People you swear you'd never see during the day. There was Toby, a rail-thin man who lived out of his busted Lincoln and ordered nothing but black coffee. Mrs. Klein, an elderly woman who came in nightly at exactly 2:11 a.m., always muttering prayers under her breath as she stirred her tea. And then there was Rico, who worked at the gas station across the lot and would come over on break to talk trash about customers. "Night shift's cursed, bro," he'd always say, laughing like it was a joke but never fully joking. "This place ever give you that weird feeling?" I always brushed it off, but that was before him, before that night, before the thing that still sits in my dreams like a shadow that refuses to leave. The night everything changed. It started like any other slow shift. Rain tapping on the windows, a flickering light in booth 7. It always flickered, and maintenance never fixed it. I was alone because the store manager loved cutting costs. Midnight to 6 a.m. was low traffic hours, which apparently meant it was perfectly fine to leave one guy in charge of the entire restaurant. Around 1:40 a.m., it got unusually quiet, even for us. No drive-through buzz, no parking lot lights, no customers. It felt like the whole world had paused. I was refilling the ketchup dispensers when I noticed something strange on the ordering counter, a paper crown. Not one of ours though. Ours were clean, golden, flat. This one looked old, like someone had dug it out of a basement. The edges were wrinkled, the yellow faded into a sickly brown. I looked around. "Yo, Rico, you in here?" No answer. I shrugged it off, grabbed it, and tossed it in the trash. 5 minutes later, it was back on the counter, sitting perfectly upright, facing me. I froze. Okay, that's weird. This time I grabbed it with gloves, dropped it in the dumpster outside, and made sure the lid slammed shut. When I came back in, there was someone sitting in booth 7, and he was wearing the crown. The man in the crown. He sat perfectly still, facing the window, hands folded neatly like he was posing for a portrait. His clothes looked like something out of an off-brand Renaissance fair. Velvetish maroon coat, ruffled sleeves, and a gold medallion that looked heavy enough to break his neck. His beard was trimmed sharply, and his hair curled to his shoulders. All of this would have just made him a cosplayer or a drunk dude, except for one thing. His skin looked wrong. Too pale, too smooth, almost waxy, like candle skin. I approached slowly. Evening, sir. Dining room's open, so you're fine, but if you want to order..." He didn't turn, he didn't blink. He just said, in a voice so calm it made my stomach twist, "The king is hungry." I forced a weak laugh. "Okay, what can I get you?" Only then did he turn his head. Just the head, not the neck. Like it rotated too cleanly. His eyes didn't look human. They were dark, empty. "Do you serve loyalty here?" he asked. I blinked. We have chicken fries?" He tilted his head. "Bring me a Whopper, made fresh." "Sure thing." "And boy," his voice dropped lower, "do not make me wait." Tension. In the kitchen, my hands shook. I don't scare easily. I've dealt with angry drunks, teenagers throwing fries, people trying to pay with Monopoly money, but something about this man felt wrong. I made the Whopper exactly to standard. No shortcuts. No messing around. When I brought it to him, he didn't touch it. Instead, he said softly, "Sit." No, I should get back to..." I said. His finger lifted toward me, slow and deliberate. "Sit." Like a puppet, my knees buckled. I sat across from him. He studied me with those dead eyes. "Do you know who sits on this throne, boy?" "You're dressed like the Burger King mascot, I guess." He smiled, but it wasn't a human smile. It stretched too far. "I am older than this building, older than the franchise, older than you can comprehend." I swallowed hard. "Look, man, if this is some prank, I came before the crown was paper. He leaned closer. Before the meat was frozen. My heart hammered. Then he whispered. And before the first employee was eaten. I shot up from the booth. Okay, nope, I'm calling the cops. But the lights flickered, and suddenly, the restaurant doors locked, on their own. I heard the click. He hadn't moved a muscle. The horror begins. Sit back down, boy, he said softly. You haven't served me yet. I brought your damn burger. I do not eat with my own hands. I blinked. What? You will serve your king. No way. He slammed both hands on the table, and the entire booth shook. My legs gave out and I sat again. His voice slid into my ears like a knife. Lift it. I picked up the Whopper. His jaw opened and opened and opened, more than any human jaw should. His teeth weren't normal teeth. They were long, jagged, needle-like, rows of them, like a shark's. My vision blurred with panic. Dude, please stop, please. Serve me. He leaned forward, and I knew if I didn't act, I was dead. The fire alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed. The sprinklers burst open, but the water didn't faze him. It steamed when it touched his skin. He laughed, a deep vibrating sound. Your castle burns, boy. I shoved the Whopper into his mouth and ran. But he didn't chew. He didn't swallow. He absorbed it, like the bread and meat melted into his throat. He stood up, his body stretched, joints popping like bubble wrap. I hid behind the fryer station. My phone had zero service. My breathing was too loud. He was right behind me. I didn't hear him walk, but I felt the air shift as his shadow fell over me. Your hand, he whispered. What? Your right hand. Give it to me. I shook my head violently. No, man, please. Then he grabbed my wrist. His fingers burned like hot metal. I screamed as he lifted my arm, dragging me like I weighed nothing. Kings must eat, he said, and in one impossible motion, he bit down. Pain exploded like lightning. I fell backward, vision fading as warm blood sprayed the steel counters. My last memory of that moment was his voice saying, "You serve well." Waking up. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. My right hand was gone, bandaged to the elbow. My parents sat beside me, devastated. What happened? I croaked. They exchanged a look. My dad sighed. Son, you were attacked by a stray dog behind the restaurant. The police think it was rabid. A dog? I whispered. Are you kidding? He was inside. He locked the doors. He talked. My mom began crying harder. My dad squeezed my shoulder. The manager showed us the camera footage. You walked outside alone. You fell near the dumpsters. No one else was there. That's not true, I yelled. He was inside, the man with the crown. They avoided my eyes. I knew then they weren't lying. Someone had edited the footage. Someone high up. Corporate visited the next day. 3 people in suits. They told me the same thing, word for word, like robots reading a script. You were attacked by a stray animal. Burger King is not liable. They slid papers across the table, a settlement, and a gag order. I didn't sign. I didn't trust them. That night, when everyone left, I looked out the hospital window, and there, across the street under the flickering street lamp, a man stood wearing a familiar paper crown. He lifted his hand slowly and placed one finger over his lips. Shh! My heart nearly stopped. The hospital lights flickered, and the crown disappeared. The years after I moved far away from Ashwood, I tried to rebuild my life. I got a prosthetic, worked remote jobs, avoided fast food restaurants entirely. But every few months, a paper crown shows up somewhere near me, on my porch, on my mailbox, on my car roof. Always old, always wilted, always facing me. And sometimes, late at night, I hear a voice whisper outside my window, "Serve your king." I don't know what he is. I don't know why he picked me. But I know this, he's still out there, and he's hungry. I have been working at Burger King for the past 3 years. I have 2 teenage daughters to look after and a mortgage to pay, but due to lack of high-paying jobs, I am stuck working at this fast food restaurant chain for so many years. Despite having a degree, most of the time this is not such a bad place to work. But there is a man who has made all our lives hell. Now you must think this man is our manager. But surprisingly, our manager is a lady who is super nice and understanding. However, there is a regular customer who loves to harass us, especially the female staff members. His name is Mr. Beck, and he is the fattest man I have ever seen. Not that I'm fat phobic or anything, but this dude is a creep. I'll describe this guy so you can paint a picture. So this dude is very fat. He always wears a 3-piece suit with a tie and all. However, he cannot walk on his own, as his legs cannot take his body's weight. So he uses an automated wheelchair that he can control with a control near his hands. He is bald and as pale as snow and wears expensive shoes and watches. Everyone knows he is loaded. But instead of eating some good food, he prefers eating 2 burgers, large fries, and a large chocolate milkshake from Burger King. But that's not even the worst part, because he is our regular customer. Our manager expects us to give him special treatment, and in the beginning, we weren't against it. However, the more familiar he got with us, the worse he behaved. For example, we often reserve a table for him, or at least make sure the one nearest the exit is available for him. We also bring him his food. Whenever a waitress brings him his order, he tried to grope her or touch inappropriately. He had pulled this stunt so many times that now only the male members of the staff served him. He also passed LWD comments at some of the younger girls. However, he never did it around our manager. So even if we complained about him, our manager used to ask us to adjust a bit. However, this one time he crossed the line, as all the male waiters were busy. A new girl who had started working there had to bring him his food. Now I myself have 2 daughters, and this girl was like a little sister to me. "Hey, you look new here. Gorgeous," Mr. Beck said to Mila, the new girl, not knowing anything about this creep. The poor girl replied, "Yeah, are you a regular here?" "Yeah, I am," Mr. Beck said, with a mouthful of burgers and fries. "Nice to meet you now. I'll leave you to it." Mila pointed to his food, smiled and started to walk away. But just then, the man wrapped his fat chunky hand around Mila's waist and pulled her into his lap before the poor girl could make out what was happening. Mr. Beck goes, "If you sit on my lap and feed me this food, I will give you 100 music bucks." Then he started laughing like a maniac. Mila sat there, frozen for a second, looking at us all behind the counter. Then she started struggling against his hold while the huge man laughed. All I could see was red. I instantly went over the counter and freed Mila from his grasp. The young waitress hugged me and started crying. "You need to leave, sir, or else we will be forced to call the cops." "Oh, you think you can get me arrested? Miss, what are you, a mere waitress? You think you can get a man like me behind bars?" I knew it was wrong to comment on someone's size, but this time I couldn't hold myself back. I had to give him a fight and come back. "Well, looking at you, I don't think you'd fit in a single jail cell, but I'm sure the cops could starve you enough to put you in one." This got the whole restaurant laughing. Everyone had seen what this man had done, and none of them were about to pity him, but I could see the rage in the man's eyes. He flipped his food tray, and in seconds there were fries, pieces of bread and chicken, along with some spilled milkshake all over the floor and his table. You think you can humiliate me? You now," Mr. Beck was yelling at me. In one instant he tried to get up from his wheelchair, but the fat man couldn't take a single step and fell face first into the mess he himself had created. Mere minutes ago, This got another round of laughter from everyone. Even Milo was giggling, but before anything more could happen, there were cops in the Burger King. And after hearing about the incident, the cops helped the man into the chair and arrested him. More of the staff members stepped forward and complained about his harassment, and he was forever banned from Burger King. Now, all the staff members were very relieved. Even our manager supported us after that went down. After that day, we never saw the fat Mr. Beck in the Burger King again. It was like a hex was lifted from our restaurant. However, a few weeks later, someone anonymous started ordering the same order Mr. Beck used to order. This order was to be left at the door of a big mansion none of the delivery boys saw who picked up the order. But every day in the evening, around 5, the order used to be placed. Everyone was sure it was Mr. Beck, as he was, according to Daphne, one of our waitresses, addicted to junk food. But we didn't care much, as no one had to deal with the fat man anymore. However, one day, when the delivery boy delivered the order, which we thought to be Mr. Beck's, he returned and told us that the food he delivered yesterday was still by the door, which meant Mr. Beck had not eaten his order, or he must have forgotten it. Some of the staff members even joked that the fat lad must have cooked with all the eating he does. We all laughed it off, but the next day, the delivery boy said that the food from the last 2 days was still by the door. This got us a bit concerned. However, if he was indeed dead, then who was making the phone call to order the food every day? We all hated the man a lot, so we did not think much of it that evening as well. But when the delivery boy reported the same thing the next day, our manager decided to call the cops and report the incident initially. The cops did not think it was serious either, because we were receiving the payment for each order on our online payment portal. But when this continued for 5 consecutive days, we requested the cops to take a look, just to be sure everything was okay. I and my manager decided to go to the mansion while the cops checked it out. One of the cops decided to check through the windows when the owner of the mansion, whom we thought was Mr. Beck, did not answer the door. As soon as he peeked inside through the glass, he yelled for backup. Soon there was a bunch of cops and paramedics breaking into the mansion, all while I and our manager were standing there, clueless. Oh yeah, this is his mansion. His full name is Mr. Lambert Beckham. And didn't anyone tell you what's going on? No, officer. Well, looks like this dude died of a stroke weeks ago. Plus, he kind of choked on a fry, could not get to his milkshake, and due to the fear of choking, died of a stroke, and finally dies. But that's not even the worst part. There are like a dozen cats of multiple breeds in there, and he wasn't able to feed them for a week. These felines ate half the dead man. The medics will take whatever is left of his body. Looks like the cats didn't starve themselves and didn't mind eating their owner, saying that the officer left. And I and our manager just waited there, not knowing what to do. A few minutes later, there was a strong, rotten stench in the air. And then we spotted the medics carry some remains of looked like a half-eaten Mr. Beck on a stretcher. I kid you not, that was the worst thing I had ever seen in my 35 years of life. Looked like the man got what he deserved after. My name is Anthony Smith, and I was an employee at the Burger King restaurant in Houston, Texas. My reason for writing this is to share with the public the horrific activities that have occurred at Burger King for the past couple of years, involving the disappearance of multiple Burger King employees with no information as to where they had gone, and my personal traumatic experience with the infamous Burger King I interviewed for the job at Burger King on the 21st of November 2017. At the time, I was 21 years old and just looking for a way to get some money while I looked for a better job. The man who interviewed me was named Donald, and since the job didn't require any past experience or anything like that, it was more Him giving me the restaurant's rules and guidelines, then actually asking me questions. The rule he emphasized the most was kind of odd to me. He made sure I understood the manager and manager's office were strictly off limits, and any issues I had should be taken up with him, the assistant manager, as the manager was a very private man and did not like to be disturbed. Now it seemed odd to me that the manager wouldn't want to interact with the employees at all, but it didn't seem like a problem at the time, and I was just glad I had gotten the job. The first few weeks working at Burger King were tiring. I was constantly doing dishes all day, and at night, when I was done with the dishes, I'd have to clean the whole place alone. I wasn't sure if I'd keep the job for much longer, but I did because I needed the money. Eventually, I got used to the routine, and I began bonding with the cooks and a girl named Becky who always stayed late to lock up while cooking at night. I couldn't help but always glance at the manager's door and wonder how no one had seen him, or if he even cared what went on in the restaurant. One day while doing the dishes, I decided to ask the cooks if any of them ever met the manager. Hey, this is kind of a weird question, but have any of you ever met the manager? A silence followed before Gerald, the head chef, looked at me and said, well, I haven't met him, but I've seen him. The silence remained as Gerald continued. It was back when I was still kind of new here. I was working the night shift when I heard his door shut. Obviously, I wanted to know what he looked like, so I stopped and had a look. Gerald paused as if trying to build up the tension. He laughed and continued, I've told everyone already, he's a pretty normal guy. There's no mystery, there's no secret, just a man that likes his privacy. So don't go looking for answers where there are no questions. Smith, he patted me on the back and walked away. We were open pretty late that night, but eventually everyone had gone home, and the only one I was left with was Becky. I decided to ask her about the manager, as I couldn't believe Gerald's story. Can I ask you something? I asked as I cleaned down the last table. Whatever you want, Smith, she replied. So I continued with, what do you think about our manager? I stopped cleaning and looked at her, trying to see if she had any reaction like the cooks, but she didn't seem even slightly bothered by my question. She just looked up at me and said, you mean the manager that doesn't exist? Honestly, I've never cared enough to ask questions. I just get paid and go home. I responded with, so you didn't find it even slightly strange? What if it's something illegal? She laughed and kept looking at her phone. Yeah, sure. Smith, maybe Burger King is a drug lab or a... She was cut off by the sound of a shutting door coming from the back. Nobody else was with us, and the only offices at the back were Donald's and the manager's. Did you hear that? I said, wondering who was around this. Late. Becky didn't seem to care, as she just replied, relax, it's probably just Donald. He stays late. Sometimes I was basically done cleaning, so I decided to check it out. I walked out to the back and no one was there, so I decided it'd be better to just finish up and leave. I didn't see Donald, I said as I returned to the dining area. It's cool, I saw who it was, Becky said, still clearly unbothered. Really, who was it? I asked. We were both pretty tired, and I figured I was keeping Becky by wasting time. So I told her I was done and left her to lock up that night in bed. I thought for a while about what both Gerald and Becky said and decided whoever the manager was, I shouldn't care, as long as I did my job and got paid. As I walked to Burger King the next morning, I could see a small crowd forming around the restaurant and a couple of cop cars and police officers trying to disperse the crowd, a lot of which were Burger King employees. I figured someone had broken in and stolen something, but as I got closer, I realized the truth was far more worse than that. My heart fell to my stomach as I saw Becky SED up against the door with her head tilted over. There was a large amount of blood on her head, and some had run down her arms and face. The police questioned all the employees on their whereabouts last night and event. It came up that I was the last person to see Becky alive, so I was taken in to see to be questioned. I told the police everything about how Becky and I usually stayed late together every night. And this wasn't a one-time thing. They asked me to think hard, as even the smallest detail could be the answer to this question. And it didn't take that much thinking to remember the only thing I found odd last night. There was a noise. I said, "A noise." The officer replied, as that detail seemed to have interested him. "Yeah, a noise. It came from the back." The officer interrupted with the back. "Like out back?" "No," I replied. "Not outside. It's where the offices and stores are. At least, that's what I thought. But when I went to check it out, no one was there." I continued with Becky said she saw someone, though the officer's eyes lit up when I said that. Did she say who it was? No. All she said was, "He was really tall." That's it, the officer said, visibly disappointed, nothing else. He continued, "Listen, young man, we understand you're probably very emotional right now and we get it, but a young lady was killed right in front of your workplace. Nothing was stolen and she wasn't sexually assaulted. Do you understand what that means? It means either your friend Becky kept some bad company, or we have a very sick individual running around killing people. So if there's anything you're keeping from us, I suggest you say it. To be honest, I was trying to understand what had happened just as much as the police wanted to, and I don't know why, but I was certain the manager had something to do with Becky's death. I told the police I didn't know anything else, and after some more questions, they let me go. I was told not to travel out of the city and that I would be contacted again shortly. I didn't think I would be a suspect, but it made sense saying I was the last person to see her alive. I thought about what to do for a while. I was already the leading suspect in this case and would be prosecuted if the police didn't find the actual killers or any evidence proving otherwise. I thought hard and back to that night, wondering if I had missed anything. All I could remember was the noise of the shutting door. It didn't make any sense how whoever it was left without me seeing them. I laid in bed, thinking for hours, before deciding I had to find out for myself what really happened that night. I walked over to Burger King at night with only one thing on my mind: who was the tall man? Saw it wasn't hard getting past the police tape and getting in through the back door. The place was quiet. I couldn't help but notice how being in here alone filled the Burger King with an eerie feeling. I silenced my phone and lowered the brightness before walking straight over to where the offices were, and standing in front of the manager's office, sort of preparing myself for a reveal of some sort. I got the sense of tension as chills ran down my spine. I opened the door, and almost immediately, something caught my eye. It was a door right at the back of his office. A door I'm guessing leads outside. It seemed to explain everything, but I couldn't help but still feel confused. I decided to look around the office and see if I'd find answers. It was quite a small office. It had a lot of paperwork and didn't have anything out of place. I figured the door was enough to prove the manager had something to do with Becky's death and would eventually help the cops figure out the rest of the story. But as I was about to leave, I heard something faint, but it got louder, and I soon realized they were footsteps. I quickly turned my phone's flashlight off and hid under the desk. Right when the door slowly creaked open, the person walked into the room, and there was silence for a minute. Fear was the only thing I could feel at that moment, as I wondered if I would end up like Becky. There was no movement or sound, almost like whoever it was simply stood in the room with me. But then he said, "You can choose to remain hidden, but the outcome won't be any different." Smith, his voice cut through the silence, but I remained quiet. He sounded old. I'd figured you'd be more enthusiastic than this when you finally got to meet me. Don't you want answers to your questions? I decided. At this point, he obviously knew I was in the room, so there was no point hiding. I hit emergency call on my phone, slipped it in my pocket, and got out from under the table. I was met with an almost 7-foot tall man, completely bald, with huge eyes that had completely sagged eye bags under them. He had a slight hunch forward and was skinny. "You knew I'd come. I was wondering how he found out I was here." "Yes, you aren't a very smart individual," he replied with no expression on his face. "Why do you kill her?" I asked, hoping the cops would get here before he killed me too. "No, I didn't kill her, Smith, you did," he said, pointing at me. "What? No, I didn't." "Yes, you did," he screamed, interrupting me. "You killed her, Smith. Your questions killed her. You couldn't just work like everyone else could. Well, that's what killed her. You know, someone like you always comes around eventually asking questions. They're not me, far too inquisitive for their own good, and then we have to kill them." I was both scared and confused. At this point, was he killing people for just trying to find out who he was? And what did he mean by, what kind of sick man kills people? 'Cause they want to know what he looks like. I took a few steps back after asking the question, as I didn't know if I would be getting a reply. He would just get bored and kill me. "Look, Smith, a long time ago, probably before you could even say a word, I was part of a greater mission to keep the world how it is, to be rid of all the purges and mistakes on this earth. I was a member of the second clan of the KKK, a group with only one goal: to cleanse the world. But instead, we were seen as evil by this weak society and deemed appealing names such as white supremacists and hate groups. Unfortunately, I was arrested and put on death row. That was until some members of my clan broke me out. Of course, we had to leave our home, but don't be mistaken, we took our mission with us. I am a very wanted man, and we're better to hide than the place this society sees as a safe place." He continued, "Do you understand? Smith, people like you are a risk to me and my class as a whole. We tried to warn you not to ask questions, but you blatantly disregarded our warning." The sickening look in his eyes couldn't be described, but I knew he was going to kill me. I didn't want to die, so I asked one last question as my final attempt to buy time. "But why Becky?" I asked, crying. He wore a sickened smile on his face as he said, "A part of me would like to say, it's because she saw me, but that's not true. Despite her nonchalant stare, the situation, she was an abomination. Her color of her skin and her supposed sexual orientation had doomed her already. My skin crawled to just see her walk around every day. It was all just a matter of time." He paused, then continued with, "Now if you're done buying time, sadly, Smith, I can't have you around anymore." I ran for the door at the back, but it was locked. My heart was pounding and tears began filling my eyes. I turned and watched as he picked a hammer from the shelf before lunging at me. Fighting back was the only option I had, and I had to take it. I grabbed his hands mid-air and we began struggling. He was oddly powerful for an elderly man, and as he hit my nose with his head, I let go of him. I was disoriented for a few seconds, and that's when I felt the hammer hit my head. I immediately hit the floor as I was barely conscious and could feel the pool of blood forming around my head as I closed my eyes. In the distance, I could hear sirens, and the last thing I saw was the manager's feet moved past me as he unlocked the back door and left. I woke up days later in the hospital and was informed I was almost dead. By the time I arrived at the hospital, the manager was identified to be Griffith Theodore, a notorious and wanted leader of the second clan, white supremacists. It was revealed both Donald and Gerald have supported and aided him for years and were never identified by the authorities. Griffith, Donald, and Gerald had escaped the police and were reported to have already fled the state the following years after. That were difficult. I suffered a traumatic brain injury from the blow to the head and had to undergo therapy and rehabilitation for traumatic brain injury. Burger King ruined my life, and there's a shiver that runs down my spine. Every time I walk past one, I can't help but always wonder if there's a deeper meaning to the Restore R's infamous slogan, "Have it your way." Hi guys, my name is Alex, and to believe it or not, I was one of the famous Burger King employees who worked in one of the most infamous Burger King branches, the Brent, that although no one ever knew it, mistreated its employees the most. It all started when our old manager, who we'll call Jerry, was fired. We had a great time with Jerry. We were so relaxed, and he was so undemanding we could hardly consider it a job. Yes, customers sometimes complained that we were late in shipping orders, but most of them left happy because they knew we made the food with a lot of love and effort. The bosses were not happy about this because they fired Jerry. At first, we all wondered if one of us would be the next manager, but since they felt that because of Jerry, we were all pretty lazy, they decided to look for someone from the outside. That's when John showed up, and that was the beginning of the end of our relaxing days, and the beginning of a nightmare that seemed like it would have never end. You see, Gene was obsessed with time. The man was always seen with at least 3 watches, always looking at them. Burger King executives loved this quality about him because whatever franchise he touched, that franchise radically improved his numbers. They were so obsessed with his accomplishments, no one stopped to think about how he did them in the beginning. Gene was constantly rushing us. He didn't want us to rest for a second. The moment a customer arrived, we all had to soldier on and not let him wait 5 minutes. He couldn't stand us preparing the food on the spot. All the food had to be previously prepared and assembled according to the client to deliver it much faster. It was hell. Every time one of us would relax, Gene would appear from behind and yell wildly at him to get to work. It was as if he were everywhere at once, as if he had eyes on us all the time. In the first few weeks, he pushed us to the limit. Most of us thought for sure he was going to calm down, that he was probably trying to make a good impression, and that he didn't want to give up in these first few days, that he was still new. But needless to say, we were wrong. As time went by, Gene became more and more demanding. He got to the point of standing next to us and timing how long we could make a burger. Many of us complained about him at the end of working hours, but no one ever dared to confront him. Not because he was our boss, but because he was terrifying. The man had a dark presence, and he looked at us with such hatred, with such disdain, that we felt that if we said anything to him, he would probably rip our heads off. As time went on, Gene's rules became more and more illogical. Once a week, he would force us to flip burgers next to him. If we took more than 20 seconds, we were financially penalized, and part of our salary was taken away naturally. Some of us started to quit, and this is where the really scary part began. Every time someone quit, Gene would get frantic that day. You couldn't even look at him, or he would scream at you with all his fury. The next day, Gene would go to work, and the day after, he would come in a very strange mood, as if something had happened the day he was absent. We tried to communicate with the guys who quit, but we could not. It was as if the people and their families disappeared off the face of the earth. We couldn't confirm it, and we had no proof, but we knew Gene had something to do with it. Meanwhile, back at the shop, everything started to get worse. The time to make a hamburger was getting shorter and shorter. The only day we saw Gene happy was when a coworker managed to do it in 8 seconds, but that only made him even angrier. At those of us who didn't make it in the beginning, people were happy because the food was coming fast. But then the complaints started. We were making the food so fast that we forgot to put in ingredients, or did it wrong. Every time this happened, Gene would wait until after work hours to yell at us and hit us. We were all too afraid to say anything to him or to quit. We were sure that something terrible would happen to us if we fought back, and not doing so, not standing up for ourselves, would make it all end in the worst of ways. I remember, On the worst day of all, Jean met me outside work. He told us that this would be his last diamond, so he wanted to make sure the staff was prepared. We all smiled and thought that if we would never see him again, after this, we would put up with anything. None of us imagined what Jean had prepared for us out of nowhere. The maniac pulled out a revolver and pointed it at all of us, who fell back in fear, raising our hands in the air. You see, guys, I can't allow any efficient personnel to remain on my last day, so that's the way it's going to be. My shift ends at 9 p.m. You have 15 minutes to flip burgers without stopping. Whoever takes longer than 12 seconds will be fired quickly. He pointed the gun at us and made us pass one by one to make hamburgers. Meanwhile, he pointed the guns at our heads, insulted us, and even slapped us in the face. In the beginning, we all managed to do it in less than 12 seconds, but before it was my turn, one guy took a second too long. Please no, without saying anything to him, Jean simply pulled the trigger and blew his head off. Now, cleaning the corpse, the rest will work here, and the Blad, and with her boyfriend by her side. Next and after that, we all kept making burgers. The condiments were full of blood, but that didn't matter. That couldn't matter, because if we made them wrong, we would end up being another corpse at that moment. We had to reveal ourselves. We should have all jumped against them, but can you blame us? We were just a bunch of scared teenagers. We just wanted to go home. Little by little, my companions began to fall and die. It was getting harder and harder to make hamburgers. The smell of blood was too much. Some of them started to omed, but they couldn't even afford that, as Jan threatened to kill them if they took too long. When it was my turn, again, I tried to go make the hamburger, but something was happening to me. My legs, they weren't working. I wanted to move, and I wanted to make the burger, but I just couldn't walk. Furious Jean came up to me and grabbed me by the hair, putting my head on the counter full of blood and rubbing it as if it were a rag. Is that why you can't move, Alex? You better get used to the blood, because if you don't make that hamburger, yours will be here too, you understand? Gathering all my energy, my body started working again, and I could answer him. Yes, sir. I started to make the hamburger as fast as possible, but it was very difficult. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was doing everything wrong, as if I was putting all the ingredients in automatic mode. I couldn't concentrate on my work. I just cried and begged to see my family one more time. Meanwhile, I felt the cod tube of Jean's gun on my head, squeezing me with disdain, as if he couldn't stand the urge to blow my head off in front of everyone. As soon as I finished the hamburger, Jean stopped the stopwatch and with a huge smile showed it to me. The stopwatch read 12 seconds. I had made it. Well, guys, it's 9 p.m. It was a pleasure working with you. I know I'm leaving the place with capable people. After saying these words, Jean put the gun to his head and simply pulled the trigger. He fell dead instantly. After something so cruel and sadistic, you can imagine that this was news all over the world, right? Well, it wasn't. Burger King put up a huge amount of money so that this story would never become known. The victims' families were bribed and threatened. No one made a fuss. Burger King was too powerful, and everyone knew they were going to lose my other co-workers, and I quit immediately after that, and we even didn't give them time to look for replacements. Sometimes I walk by the restaurant and see that it's open again, with kids like us, having fun when I sit down to eat. I never again get nervous about how long the food will take. I appreciate that they take their time, because every time food comes quickly, I am reminded of the stacked corpses of my co-workers and how close I came to being one of them.